Welcome to the Limitless Ladies Network podcast, where we are limitless in sharing lessons to advocate and drive insightful, empathetic self care. The Limitless Ladies Network is dedicated to nourishing minds, educating on self care, and facilitating transformative experiences. Our mission is to guide women to age with grace, cultivate good health, and build meaningful connections to bring happiness into their lives. We strive to empower the ladies of the community so they may successfully advocate for themselves and embrace a journey of holistic well being. Please note that the information and opinions shared on this podcast are for educational purposes only and are not intended in any way to be used as medical advice. Please seek a medical professional for any health related matters and always refer to our full disclosure in our show notes. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Limitless Ladies Network. I am very pleased to have Genevieve Hawks of Isong Health back with me today. You may remember her from when she looked into my eyes very deeply and found some health issues um, as she practices iridology. But she also is a master of multiple different trades, and she is a master herbologist. So we are here to talk about how we can use our herbs to help us cleanse as we move into the spring season. So welcome back, Genevieve.
Thank you for having me.
I love this. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
I love being here. I love talking with you.
It's a lot of fun. And I'm happy we get to kind of dig in a little bit, no pun intended, but maybe, about herbs.
Perfect. Yeah. Um, where would you like to start?
I would love to start just thinking that spring is here, and I know it's going to get here at some point in time. We're getting closer. That
Yes.
we might need to detox a little bit from the winter. I know my body is like had a really rough season this past winter. So are there any herbs that you can suggest that would help us to renew as and detox?
Yeah, actually, there's a few. Um, it's funny we're talking about detox and spring together because oftentimes in herbalism, we're taught about different seasons, and winter is usually the season of accumulation. So spring comes around and it's about getting rid of the excess, all the things we've stored up. So we are wanting great herbs that are meant for that natural detox, to work with your body's systems, what it's already trying to do. And so some of my favorites would be something like dandelion. Dandelion is really great because it supports the liver and the gallbladder, and it gently detoxes it. It also works with cleaning the blood out. I also really love burdock for that reason. Burdock is a fabulous blood cleanser. It grows all around here in the United States, even places in Europe too. So it's pretty commonly found. I also really love things like nettle, especially for those that maybe deal with some allergies. I know there's a lot of pollen in the air usually, which causes cleansing reactions for everyone that deals with allergies. The pollen has a reaction where when you inhale it, it tends to expel mucus and all kinds of things. So that's why it's allergy season right now. But if you're struggling with that, nettle is really good at giving your body what it needs to gently detox so it's not all coming out through your eyes or your nose all at once.
Uh,
Those are a
uh,
couple.
yeah, those are some good ones as we're moving into a lot of that allergy season. I know my husband has allergies, so makes total sense. And of
Right.
course, springtime, I would imagine that some of those things might be, like you said, they're native to us. So we might actually be starting to see them emerge up there.
Yes, lots of that. Even the little clovers that you see growing in your grass, things like red clover or white clover, even, those are some of those spring detoxing herbs too. Now make sure if you're getting them from your yard and if you have a dog or something, maybe don't pick those ones or wash them off or something if you're worried, but there is free medicine all around growing.
Yeah, we want to make sure that there's no pesticides, no chemicals on there. So definitely getting
Right.
organic teas or organic herbs, because who knows what has happened in the soil outside. I mean, you might know in your own yard, but you
Right.
never know what kind of water drain off that you have coming from your neighbor's yard that could be putting toxins in there. So always be mindful of that. So
Yes.
for anyone that's new to herbs or herbology, Where do you think that they should start?
So I would start, if it were me, I would want to start with herbs that are, if you want to call them beginner herbs, that's a good place to start. So in herbalism, I was always taught that food is medicine for the body. And herbs are essentially concentrated forms of food. So that's where I like to start. In fact, you may even have a lot of these already in your kitchen. So something like garlic. Yes, garlic is actually an herb. That is wonderful for cardiovascular health. It's really good for circulation. It's also my favorite if there's any forms of infections or anytime I start feeling a little something, if I need a little immune boost, what I love to do is take a couple cloves of garlic, fresh press them into some raw honey. If you want, you can sprinkle a little bit of cayenne powder on top. So right there, garlic, honey, and cayenne. Most people have those things in their kitchen space, but right there is a really good quick herbal remedy where if you just take a little teaspoon of that a couple times a day, that's a good place to start. Some of the other ones, you've probably heard of peppermint at this point.
Mhm.
Peppermint tea is one of my favorites because one, it tastes really good, peppermint or spearmint, but it's also really good for digestion. Peppermint is technically what's known as a prebiotic, a little bit different than a probiotic. And so it really helps not only with digestion and the breakdown of the food, but also it works as a calmative. So people that struggle with nervous tension and people that get really stressed and then they feel it in their gut, there's usually, um, I see a lot of people that deal with that. Peppermint is a wonderful thing for that because it calms the mind and the nervous system, but it also gets digestion going, especially when we've been so uptight, because we have a tendency when we're stressed to be very uptight, and it's our digestion that suffers with that. Um, I also really love something like chamomile. Chamomile is really great if you are needing just a little cup of it at night and you need to go to sleep, if you haven't been sleeping so well, or if you get, or if you're like a lot of people where you've had an entire day and it's really hard to unplug and wind down. It's almost like there's that static in your mind. Chamomile, a cup of chamomile tea is a really great way to start too. Now, there's so many herbs I could talk about and continue to just for like beginning herbs, but like I said, start with foods, start with gentle herbs, try a cup of tea. Just get your feet wet a little bit. You don't have to dive all into some whole herbal application right off the bat. Um, and once again, several of these different herbs, they grow around. They grow everywhere around here. It's free medicine. Or if you're not sure, once again, you can go to a store, you can go on Amazon, places like that, and find some of them.
I like the idea of using teas. So from our last discussion on, my eyes and the discovery of my gallbladder being an issue, I was using dandelion tea and I found one that I absolutely love. And it has dandelion and chicory root in it, plus a little,
Perfect.
yeah, a little extra something. I want to say it's like cacao, but maybe not. So it just tastes really good. And then my husband has been having some stomach issues lately too. So he's been using mint tea with ginger in it. And it like totally
Excellent.
helps to settle his stomach within minutes. And it's just so simple to do. You just steep it in some not too hot water, but has a great
Right.
flavor, makes him feel better within minutes. So
Yeah, teas are one of the most underrated forms of herbal application, and most of the time they're not expensive. So when people see that something's cheap, they often will dismiss it a lot of the time as being powerful or something that actually works. But do not underestimate a good cup of peppermint tea or ginger tea or dandelion tea. Usually the benefits can be felt within days, sometimes right after. Like you said, your husband takes it for when his stomach feels a little off and it just settles it, right?
Yeah, it's pretty fast, so it's nice. He was taking apple cider vinegar for a while after meals, but then, he would just have tight stomach or what have you, and he'd have some tea and it would disappear pretty quickly. So,
Right.
how else besides teas would you recommend that we maybe prepare some of our herbs?
Sure. So, other than teas, I find the other most underrated application of herbs is actually topically. So, our skin has an amazing ability to absorb things. Anything that you put on your skin, it's absorbing it. That also includes toxic lotions and chemicals. So, you might want to
Mhm.
avoid those. But herbal salves or ointments, those are really great. For instance, I love making a comfrey salve. Any bruises, any pain, even dryness of skin, I will go get that comfrey salve and I will apply it wherever the pain is. And within minutes, I'm good as new. So
Wow.
there's that way. There's also sometimes when you don't have time to make a full cup of tea, it takes a good 15 minutes to make proper tea.
Right.
And not all of us have that with we're especially on the go. It's helpful to look into tinctures or the concentrates of herbs where you can just take a little dropper full, drop it in some water, and you can make an instant tea basically that way.
Hmm. Are there some herbs that you can make as a tincture, and how would you go about making it?
Right. So there's a lot of herbs. You want to make sure the herb that you're choosing has the correct solvent to break down in because not every herb breaks down into alcohol so well. Not every herb also breaks down or is fat soluble. So a lot of tinctures, they'll use different oils, they'll use glycerin, they'll use alcohol. So if you're making your own, make sure you are using the proper solvent. But essentially, what you'd want to do, just a really quick one, what you can do is get yourself some Everclear, or if you don't prefer the alcohol tinctures, or if you're just trying to avoid that, you can get something like vegetable glycerin. I prefer alcohol though, just because it draws the constituents out faster. It also has a longer shelf life. But
Hmm.
once again, glycerin works too. But you'd want to get yourself a mason jar, a glass jar, stuff the herb in. I'd like to fill it about halfway or so, and then fill it up with the vodka or the Everclear or also the glycerin and let it sit there and macerate for a good, I'd say I like to go for a month or two at least. Make sure you shake it every day too, so that everything is kind of getting woken up a little bit in there. A lot of people find starting them on the new moon is very helpful. Apparently, there is a polarity with the moon that happens in the new moon where um, it is allowing the drawing because it works on the bodies of water, the oceans, everything. The moon creates tides. It also
Right.
works for tincture making, then liquids. It will pull the a lot of those constituents out, and then by the full moon, it's ready to usually be harvested. So that's a really good way to time your tinctures as well. You don't have to follow the moon cycles or anything. It'll still work great, but I do find it's like significantly more effective when you follow those type of things and follow nature itself.
I love following the
Um,
lunar cycles. That makes total sense. And that actually may reduce the time if you do it starting at the new moon, where it's kind of drawing it faster out. So it's only really a 2-week period instead of a month, do you think?
right. Yes, exactly. There's no wrong, I guess there is a wrong way to make tinctures, but as long as you have a solvent of some kind, some herb that works with that solvent, and you give it some time, shake it every day, you will have a tincture. Just make sure when you are done, you want to strain it out because you don't want all the little herbs in there that there's nothing in them. That's all in the liquid now. So,
Yeah, you're extracting all the goodness out of the herb and putting it into the liquid that then you can use.
yes.
Nice. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about healing herbs? And what do you wish that people would understand about their usage?
Oh, you know, I think the biggest misconception people have about herbs is that they're like pharmaceuticals or they work like there's a pill for every ill. Herbs don't work that way. They don't override the body's natural mechanisms. They work with it. So it's not exactly in people's best interest to just, say, oh, you have a headache or something. Let me take peppermint for that or something. You'll get some benefits from that, maybe have a lessening of the headache, but you want to find what the root cause of that actually is. A lot of for people, we have nerves in within our digestive tract that correlate directly with brain nerves, and when they are compacted or pressed upon, constipation, we have cluster headaches, we get migraines, things like that. So you can keep taking the peppermint and over time it might detox, but you actually want to use herbs once again to get to the root cause of issues. You don't want to just pop it like a pill because it doesn't often work. They don't work that way. They don't override the body systems. Um, you want to help the body do naturally what it's already trying to do, which is detox.
Right. Yeah. I can relate to that where you might hear something and know that that's going to go to the symptom. But I agree that really digging a little deeper and trying to figure out why that headache or that stomach ache is actually happening in the first place is really more where you should start instead of just trying to cover up or slowly kind of deal with that underlying issue because it will just keep rearing its ugly head until it gets worse and worse, you know?
It's true.
Yeah,
They can they'll help you for a little bit, but until you get to that cause with them, you may, yeah, have a repeat of needing to take that peppermint again and again. So,
absolutely. Yep. So to that point, like how would we know what specific herbs we could use for our health? Like whatever concern that we're working on. Say we get to the right root cause of what it is. How do I know that that's going to be the right herb that I should use?
well, ideally, we want to see what's going on, which oftentimes people, that's what they use me for iridology. We can look in through the eye and see what's happening with the tissues. We can see, are the tissues inflamed? Are they congested? Are they nutrient deficient? Um, are the eliminative pathways for detox functioning or are they not? And
Mm,
so from there, that's how I would choose an herb. For things that are really inflamed, I would look for something that's a little bit more cooling of an herb. So if you have people back to digestion, people that deal with a lot of like that feeling of fire in their stomach, you'd want something more cooling, like a peppermint herb that,
mm,
um, yeah, cools things down, makes them a little less inflamed. If someone is cold, that's usually a lack of circulation. So then I'd want more warming herbs for them, something like ginger or a garlic or a warming cayenne type of a thing. Something to get that circulation going again. And if they are deficient in nutrients, I would look for something more concentrated with minerals. Nettles are super concentrated with minerals, alfalfa, different things. But yeah, every person is different. Herbs can be used universally for the most part, but we'd want to, yes, tune in and see exactly what's happening. Um, do you need nutrients? Do we need to detox something? Do we need to feed something? Is something inflamed? So we'd go
yeah.
from there.
We are a very complex system, that is for sure. So sometimes treating one thing is, again, not really getting to the root cause, or you're only dealing with one piece of it, and then there's multiple things that are happening. So it's always good to
Right,
take a holistic view of all that's happening with you.
right.
Yeah. Moving on a little bit and just thinking about our clarity. So we did talk a little bit about the springtime and how, we've got our allergies coming and all of that. So we might get a little brain fog and all that. So you gave us suggestions on herbs to try, which is great. What about just mental clarity and our energy? Because that also gets drained, right? Besides our runny noses and our runny eyes. So you gave us suggestions on that. But what other herbs can we look to that can help us support our immune system, but also help us with boosting our energy?
Right. Okay. So if there is a lack of clarity or energy happening, once again, I want to find out where it's coming from. I don't want to just give you an herb that would, increase energy, but we want to find what's causing the lack of it. So usually fatigue is coming from a couple things. It can be toxicity, buildup of, just what we've accumulated naturally from living life. And then the other part is deficiency. So if you don't have enough nutrients or specific kinds or vitamins or minerals, you're not going to have energy to run. And so we want to find herbs, once again, that tend to fit that bill of giving you either nutrients or helping you detox those pathways. So once again, nettle, alfalfa are excellent for when you are feeling exhaustion or fatigue from lack of minerals or lack of nutrients. Um, I also really love something like cayenne or ginseng because naturally they do give you a little boost of energy, but they open up detox pathways as well, and they help us naturally eliminate a lot of the sludge and stuff that's just kind of like keeping us down, a lot of that mental fog. Peppermint too. We talked about peppermint a couple times already. Peppermint works really well for that too because it gives you some of that mental clarity. I mean, even just smelling peppermint alone, it's like, woo, it's like I don't want to say a kick in the face, but
Pretty much, yeah, it is a good one. And I love
right.
tea, like spearmint tea. I usually make that more towards like coming into the spring or the summer. To me, it's so refreshing to have a nice ice cold glass of like mint tea while you're out and it's hot. It just feels so cooling on the inside as you're sweating on the outside.
Right. See, you got it. Cooling herb for when you're feeling hot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm catching on.
Mhm.
Are there any herbs that we should be very cautious of?
This is always a funny question because a lot of the time herbs get blamed for cleansing reactions. And this happens when people, like we talked about earlier, they don't get to the root cause of something. And then if their eliminative path, if the elimination pathways aren't open and then they start taking a detox herb, but the exit doors shut, that's where we have problems. So essentially, all herbs need to be used with care. But more to your question of what you're asking, certain ones I would be careful with would be something like lobelia. That's something that grows around here. It's a powerful herb. It's wonderful. It's one of my favorites. And it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to do anything that would actually cause problems. But I'm talking about it because if you do eat too much of it, it actually works as something called an emetic, which means you're going to be throwing up.
Ooh, that's bad.
It forces vomiting, which on one hand, let me tell you, I've done it before, accidentally taken too much, just out of curiosity, what happens? Um, I felt like $1,000,000 after, let me tell you. I felt so great after that purging, but it's not something I'd want to do for everyone else. It was
Right.
so, if you do use lobelia, make sure if you're adding it in your tea, just do a little sprinkle. I mean, you have to take quite a bit to start that vomiting process, but and even if you get there, you're not going to be harmed or anything. It's just doing its job. It's doing what it's medicinally made to do.
So if you
Um,
take it in a little dose, is it just going to help you purge on the way out then?
so the reason why I add lobelia is it's known as a thinking herb. There's something about this herb that is a little bit different than others, and it's always been called a thinking herb because it knows what to do when the body is kind of at a standstill.
Hmm.
So sometimes I have people that they've got a lot of infection basically, and a lot of that infection builds up because it's not being eliminated properly. But sometimes that exit door is so blocked, it's going to take some time to unblock it. But if you take lobelia and you pair it with things, it knows where to take it. So if it can open the exit door, it will do it. But if it finds it's actually safer and quicker for you to detox other ways, which it will send something through the skin, which doesn't sound the most pleasant, but in life or death situations, it tends to know what to do properly.
Yeah.
I always add it to, if it's not like a life or death situation, I went to the extreme version. Um, but I love adding a sprinkle of it into all of my teas. It acts as a catalyst to help drive the herbs a little bit deeper and get them a little bit farther in the bloodstream. It knows where to take them. It's almost like if AI was an herb. It would be lobelia and it would take what it needs where it needs to go.
Wow, that's kind of cool that it basically navigates to where you need it most.
Yes, that's why we call it a thinking herb. We need to do some more studies on it because it acts different than other herbs. It's like it has a mind of its own, truly, when you've worked with it long enough and seen what I've seen with it. So
Wow, that's fascinating.
it's also fabulous for pain. Topically,
Hmm,
one of the best things I know for pain and nerve pain, especially
really?
when paired with comfrey.
Wow. What's comfrey? I've heard you say it, but I don't know that I know exactly what that is.
So comfrey is one of my most favorite herbs of all time, if not my favorite herbs. Comfrey is a plant that grows around North America, as well as I believe it's in places all over in Europe as well. But what makes comfrey fabulous is it has roots that reach up to 80 or even 90. Sometimes they've measured it even upwards of 120 feet underground. This little
Wow.
plant, its roots go so deep. But because of that, it bypasses all of our topsoil that's usually devoid of nutrients with what we've done to this plant at this point, but it gets really deep down there. And then because of that, comfrey naturally can soak in um, a lot of those nutrients that are still down there 120 feet underground. And because of that, too, it makes it super dense with vitamins, minerals, nutrients. I often think of comfrey as like the closest thing we have to stem cells. So if AI is lobelia, then comfrey would be stem cells. It's one of the only things that I know that has been shown to actually regenerate cell growth, bone growth, tissue growth. I've
Wow.
used it myself several times. I wouldn't be walking today if I hadn't found comfrey. Um,
Wow.
there was when I would lived in Hawaii, I actually ended up getting into a very silly accident, but essentially I had busted both of my ankles.
Oof.
And I was also in the middle of the jungle. There were not hospitals. There was like a little clinic there, but I was kind of stuck basically. For whatever reason, I had decided to take a bunch of comfrey with me in my suitcase. I don't know why. I just threw it in there. Might need it. Who knows? I'm so glad I did because the doctor was no help there after I had basically broken my ankles. But I got home and I started making my comfrey pots. Mind you, I'm like on my knees on the counter trying to make this stuff. But I drank comfrey like it was no one's business, pretty much. And because of that, within a couple days, I was able to start walking again. Didn't even
Wow.
have to go back to the clinic. I have used Comfrey for more accidents than I can even tell you. Um, I make it topically into salves. That's one of my favorite ways to do it. But I also take it internally. Now I do have to say there is an FDA, um, there is something out there that the FDA has put out against Comfrey.
Hmm.
And I would like to just talk and touch on that a little bit because if you read about comfrey, you'll see a lot of misinformation popping up, how it's toxic to the liver and yada, yada, yada. I used to do medical research on herbs for a living. And so I looked into comfrey because I just know comfrey is one of the safest herbs. It was used for hundreds and hundreds of years historically up until this was probably, I think, in the late 90s. They targeted it and took it out of stores for
Because it was so
internal use.
helpful to people that they were like, oh, well, we can't have them taking this all natural ancient herb that has been healing people for eons. Wow.
Yeah. There were a lot of people saying they were even healing their stomach cancer by taking this.
Mm.
But back to the study, and the reason why they said comfrey is toxic is, for one, let me tell you, they didn't actually even use American comfrey. They used something called Russian comfrey, which is different than what we'd be using. It's known as a toxic houseplant. It's not an herb we even use. So one, the studies that were done to defame it, they were using the wrong species, for one. And then two, they basically in the study amplified one constituent out of, the tens of thousands that exist in comfrey. They took one alkaloid, magnified it at 4,000 times, 4,000 times its amount of what you could ever possibly find in nature, injected into a mouse, and the mouse died. But mind you, that alkaloid is not present in any comfrey at those levels in which they tested it with
Right.
4,000 times. I mean, that's insane. Um, I mean, 4,000 times of anything, and you're going to die. If you inject 4,000
Right.
times of a cup of water in your body, you'll explode. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, and then they use the wrong species. So, a lot of the comfrey out there, no one's selling Russian comfrey. Usually online, you'll find American comfrey. So don't worry, even if you're looking for it. But do keep in mind that there is some contraindications and things the FDA has put out. But when you actually get into the studies, look at the research, you will see it actually has nothing to do with the comfrey that we use. So it just, because it has the same name, got looped in and they wrote the laws according to that. So,
Yeah. Well, thanks for debunking that whole theory there.
oh, you're welcome. I'm passionate about comfrey if you can't tell.
Yes, I mean, and I can see why, because it has been used as such a good healing ancient herb, and for it to go so deep into Mother Earth and be able to live and sustain and all the nutrients, like you said, it just sounds like a miracle herb. Why would you not want to use it? Right?
Right. You can
Yeah.
even bathe in it too for people that have osteoporosis, people
Mm.
that have all over body joint pain. Get yourself a little nylon sock or cotton sock, stuff it with some of the comfrey leaf, run your bathtub water as hot as you possibly can. Once it's at that hot level, attach the comfrey leaf to your faucet with like a good rubber band or something and just let it fill up. Let your
Yep.
bath cool for a bit before you get in, of course, but you
Yeah.
can even use it that way if you're afraid to take it internally. You can just bathe in it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. I love all of the tips that you provided. This has been so great. I have to say this, we're not offering medical advice here, right?
nope,
You should always check with your primary care practitioner to make sure that any herb or anything that you're doing in terms of your diet or ingesting or putting on your skin is not going to have an adverse effect. Check out
absolutely.
the disclosure within our show notes, but this is all really great information. I feel like that is worthwhile us sharing on ways that we can naturally kind of help ourselves, get into our best bodies for the springtime.
Yes, love that.
So thank you, Genevieve, for joining me again today. This was great talking about herbs. Our audience can find you at isonghealth.com
Yes.
and anywhere else that you'll be coming up.
You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. I'm doing a few pop-up events. I'm gonna have one at my office. I'm thinking April 18th this month, if you live in Cromwell, Connecticut, where I'm doing an iridology clinic where if you want to have me check in your eyes and see what's happening with your body, maybe get some good herbal applications, some good solutions, come on by. I'll be posting more about that. Otherwise, I do events all over the East Coast here, different expos. But, you can always find me, my website, www.isonghealth.com. And I talk to people all over the world. So even if you don't live in Connecticut, I also do virtual consultations as well.
Fantastic. This is so great. And if you like this episode with Genevieve, please leave a comment, share it with your friends, subscribe to our channel so that you can be alerted when we have other great episodes coming out. Follow us on Facebook, on LinkedIn as well, and of course on our YouTube channel. And check out our Limitless Ladies Network website where we have some upcoming events as well, some women's gatherings coming up, and some lunar events, speaking of moon earlier, that will be happening in town around at a winery, and a couple of other things that are happening. I'll be also involved in some conferences and some trainings coming up in April as well. So thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.